I don't know if we've got anybody in here yet. Oh, we got a few people coming in. Thank you for joining me. This is actually, I think, my first solo live stream. I don't think I've ever done one by myself, so this will be an awkward experience potentially. And this is obviously we're going to be doing our first live Speedy sample review, so this is going to be fun. I've got a guest or two lined up. Hopefully they'll come in later, so we'll have them join us in a little bit. And we'll be talking a little bit about the whiskeys I reviewed over the last week in the Speedy sample review summer bonanza. So that was a lot of fun to do. Hopefully you guys enjoyed all the extra reviews. It was a bunch of extra work editing them, but it was a good time, and I had a lot of fun putting all those out. So hopefully you guys got something out of them. I know I got a lot of good comments and everything on those videos. So thanks to you guys for watching. I'm glad you're all here for the live stream. Let me grab a sip of water, and let's get this thing started. So I thought I would start off by doing a little bit of a kind of behind the scenes action on the Speedy sample review. So not that there's much to them. You pretty much see everything I'm doing when on the video. But a little bit behind the scenes is I always have, let me see if I can get this camera. Let me move my mic and see if I can show you guys. So I always have the 2 boxes of samples, just like this. But that's not all the samples I have. I got way more samples than that. So I have a whole other box here. I don't know if you can see this. Boom, there's a bunch more in here. So what I normally do, even though I don't know what samples are in there to begin with, I always like to feel like they're getting mixed up anyway. So I'll, grab some out, switch them around. So I just have no clue what's going in these boxes and where it's at. So it's kind of my way of doing this whole thing solo and keeping it blind. So I thought it'd be fun today, and it'll take a minute before we get this going. But actually, I don't want to tell you just yet. Here, let me say hey to everybody's in the chat. I see we got a few people here. We got Cooper 57M. What is up, buddy? Brandon Weiss, Nick Zangatsis, Pete McNeil. We got My Bourbon Journey. Scott, what's up, buddy? Rob Davey, Jeffrey Neal, Tony May Hike. We got Guy Davis. So what's up, everybody? Glad you could join in the fun. Let's get to the Speedy sample review. So I thought instead of doing the random number generator like I normally do on the Speedy sample reviews, I thought it'd be cool to have the first person to post a number between 1 and 24. The first one I see pop up in the chat, that's the one we're going to go with for the Speedy sample review. So somebody throw up a number. Whoever's first gets to pick it. So let me grab a glass while I'm waiting for you guys to hear what I'm saying. And all right, the first number that came in was from Rob Davey, number 13. So here's the samples. This box has 12. Actually, we'll go here. This is the first 12, so this one will be 13. So let me put this back up here. We'll cover up the label so we can't see it. All right, label's covered. You guys can't see this either. Let me move these boxes out of the way. Move my mic back. All right. So we got our glass. We got our whiskey. Let's give it a pour. As always, just keeping the label covered with my hand so I don't see it. There's that. And it was out of this box. So I'll put it right back in. Not looking. You can see I'm not looking. All right. For the aroma, got a standard light fruity kind of bourbon nose, apple, a little bit of pear. I've been wrong on a couple guesses lately, but my first instinct on this is that it smells a little bit like Buffalo Trace. Color-wise, it's kind of like a darker amber color. I don't know if you guys can see. Actually, I see that my name's on the screen. I don't think that we probably really need that at the moment. So let me see if I can figure out how to take it off. Bingo. All right. Actually, I'll show you. I got to see if this works too. So I'm using for the very first time, as you can see up in the corner of the screen right there, Google got rid of Hangout. So I'm having to use this StreamYard, which so far seems pretty cool. A couple of the other guys have used it. I know Scott from My Bourbon Journey is the one who kind of brought it up. And I know that Kyle from Bourbon Blind has used it. And Jason from the Mash and Drum has also used it. So, boom, there it works. Now, funnily enough, I'm looking at this and it switched the order of these posts around. So actually, Scott from My Bourbon Journey picked 13 and came in first. Rob Davey now shows after, but they both picked the same number. So, guess it doesn't really matter. But Anyways, all right. Let's get to this whiskey. Now the nose is getting a little bit more of like an oaky note to it. A little bit of spice on there as well. Smells good. Let's get to it. Cheers. Yeah, so a lot of those same fruity notes on the tongue. We're getting a little bit of the apple, got a little bit of heat here too. This is the first drink I've taken today, so we'll have to get another one in and see if it is actually a little hot, but it feels a little bit warmer, like a little bit higher proof potentially. Scott is asking, is it rum? It could be. We don't know. It's possible. So we got 22 people in here right now. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining. If you are just getting in here, we're in the middle of our live Speedy sample review. Just getting a few notes here. We've got some on the mid palate, some kind of switches into a little bit more oaky, and definitely towards the back of the palate, we're getting some oak on it. Definitely got a little bit of a spice, like an herbal type character, but not very strong. Pretty mild at this point. Not tasting too high in proof anymore. I think we're probably in that like 90 to 95 range. Get a sip of water here. But while I'm going through this, why don't you guys throw up in the chat, what are you guys, well, maybe it's a little early for some of you, but what are you guys sipping on? Do you have a drink? What are we drinking right now? I know it's summer in a lot of places. It's hot. I'm in Southern California. In the last, several weeks, we've been definitely up in the hundreds. So it's definitely been warm out. I love the opportunity to not wear a flannel on occasion when I do these live streams. So that's always fun. Anyways, so we've got, let's see, we've got Jeffrey Neal drinking Evan Williams. DJ Beacon drinking 1792 foolproof store picks. Those are the out of the 1792 line. Those are the best for sure. Let's see. He's not drinking it right now, but Steve Aronson saying he had a Booker's 128 proof last night and it kicked his butt. So maybe he's not ready to start drinking just yet. Brandon Weiss is sipping on Eagle Rare. Oh, and poor Jeff Humberson says he wish he had a drink, but unfortunately he is at work. It happens. We've got a question coming in from Jeffrey Wack, and he's asking, do I have a whiskey that I start to reacclimatize my palate to? So usually no. I've tried that in the past to use like a lower proof whiskey to kind of just get my palate revved up and ready to go. And I just kind of find it didn't really help me out. So I'll usually just go, get a sip on the palate, let that marinate a little bit. And usually by the second sip, I'm good to go. So it's really not like a long acclimatization process. So I just never really waste the time doing it or bother with the effort. All right, let's take one more sip and get down to this. Yeah, definitely has some oaky bitterness, some vanilla, some brown sugar. I like the fruitiness up front. Definitely has some of that kind of like red apple type character to it, nice and sweet. But it really balances out toward the mid palate, kind of bitters out a little bit. Some of the alcohol kind of washes it out. So I think it's tasting great. It's good. As a Speedy sample review score, one more sip. We're not in a rush here today. It's good. It's a very standard kind of bourbon. At this point, not knocking my socks off, but definitely very solid. So I'm going to say this whiskey is maybe like an 84, 85. Let's go with 84. I think it's dang good, solid, and let's see what it is. This is Wild Turkey Rare Breed. I don't know if you can see this. Rare Breed, and you can kind of get the behind the scenes on my crummy handwriting that I write in these labels. Rare Breed, 116.8 proof, and I originally gave this an 89. And so we're starting off with a hot whiskey. Strangely enough, I can't remember if it was this batch of Rare Breed or not. it doesn't drink super hot. Like some of these whiskeys, and Rare Breed being one of them, they don't drink hot. Like you get a ton of the flavor, but not a lot of the heat to go along with it, which is awesome. So I'm glad we got to do one of these live. I thought it'd be fun just to dink around and have a live Speedy sample review. So I know everyone's a big fan of Rare Breed. Cooper 57M, Bill, I know he's a fan. And it's just a great whiskey. I would say this one popped a little bit more when it was fresh. So this sample was poured a few months after the bottle was open, maybe like 3 or 4. So I'll have to marinate with it. We'll drink a little bit more as the stream goes on and see how this is going, but definitely tasting good. But so now that we're done with the Speedy sample review, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these whiskeys that I reviewed over the course of this week. So if you didn't catch me doing this whole week worth of stuff, I announced it last weekend. I started on Sunday where I did 7 days in a row of Speedy sample reviews. So we went through quite a few different whiskeys. Had a good time doing them. They were all in our Speedy sample review pile. Some of them were re-reviews. Some of them we kind of got the full gamut. So a couple of them were from people that had sent me samples to review or just to enjoy, and I just ended up reviewing them. And some of them were from distilleries. So out of the ones that were from distilleries, I did the Dogfish Head alternate takes, which was a volume 1, which is a whiskey finished in rum casks. And I thought it was a strange tasting whiskey because it had a lot of sweetness to it and a lot of fruitiness to it, but there was a smoky quality to it. And I couldn't figure it out what it was. And I ended up, after I finished shooting the video, looking it up, and they used smoked malts in it. So they obviously explained why we were tasting smoke in that whiskey. So that was one of them. One of them that surprised me, because I heard a lot of really good things about it and them, is the Iron Root Harbinger. I'd never had Iron Root before. I've had a couple other Texas whiskeys that I thought were pretty decent, but I'm not in love with any of them. I think, there's this, and I said this in the video, there's this big, thing that, Texas whiskey ages faster. And I really don't think that it does. All these whiskeys that I've had from Texas, and I'm not pretending I'm an expert, I've only had a few, but they've all tasted incredibly young. They may have some other depth, like specifically in this one, there was a lot of like deep, rich characters there that came from the barrel. So I in the video I mentioned, I didn't know how they were accomplishing that, whether it was small barrels, whether it was the extra heat, whether they double barreled it, but there's definitely additional flavor there than you would normally get on a young whiskey. So there is a slight improvement when you have maybe these hot temperatures that they have in Texas, but it definitely still tastes young. So that one surprised me a little bit. I had high hopes for it, and not that it was bad, but it just didn't knock my socks off. So obviously, we did a re-review of the Weller Antique, which did very well. Always a solid pour. I'm enjoying that bottle, and we're getting down. This is my last regular bottle. I have a couple bottles of the store picks, but we're getting down to a little below half here, so it's going to be time to put the pedal to the metal and finish that bottle soon. We also did a re-review of Booker's. This was the... You can see that my camera will focus. 2017-03, the Front Porch batch. This is a fantastic whiskey, and Booker's, and this has always been my experience with Booker's seems to only get better with time. I've had a pour of this recently, and I think it tastes even better than it did when I did the Speedy sample review when the bottle had been open for like 3 or 4 months. So Booker's is always a fantastic pour, so I'm really glad to have re-reviewed this one. It had been in the re-review pile forever, over a year. I'm seeing in the comments here, John does not like smoke. This is mostly true. I can enjoy smoke to some extent. Like I can enjoy a very small amount of it. That's kind of a component to the whiskey. When the smoke, I feel like, overwhelms the whiskey, and maybe for me, I'm sensitive to it, so it's more often than not that's what it's doing. But when the smoke is so overwhelming that I can't enjoy the rest of the whiskey, that's when I don't like it. But I've had some smoky whiskeys that I do enjoy, and I think I really just need to keep hammering on them and kind of acclimating myself to them and getting used to it, because it's really tough, and especially in a whiskey where you don't expect it. Like if you see it coming and you know what you're about to get, it's probably a little bit easier than when you're doing like a blind review and you get that smoke. It really shocks you. Scott wants to get a live stream going. Absolutely, buddy. Let's put it on the books. I got one coming up with Jason from the Mash and Drum soon. I've got one hopefully coming up soon with Dan from Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And me and Scott should be doing one soon because it's been a long time. Scott was the first, I think he was my first live stream I did was with Scott. And that was well over a year ago, I think. You can maybe remember better than me, buddy. But yeah, I think it was over a year. So we're definitely overdue. Another one of the whiskeys I reviewed was the Few Rye whiskey. And I was pretty underwhelmed with this one. I thought it popped maybe a little bit more when it was fresh, but especially now that it had some airtime while this bottle has been open for quite a while. The young notes really, really showed through, and you can't get away from that young flavor. So that was most a couple of the whiskeys that I reviewed. I don't have bottles of. Dan, again from Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews, he sent me a sample of the E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, which was absolutely fantastic. What a great whiskey. I wish I could get a bottle of it. I just never see them come through. So hopefully I can get my hands on one of those because it is great, great stuff. And as I told you guys in the video, some people get skittish because some of these whiskeys are running a little bit high in price, like that. The barrel proof probably goes for, retail's supposed to be like 70 or 80, but it generally probably goes for closer to 100 or more. I would be happy to pay $80, probably do $100 for it. It was really, really good, and I think it's probably well worth it. So don't be scared there. One of the other things we did during this week as an additional, wasn't a Speedy sample review, but I started a new segment that I called No Time Like the Present, and we did a review, not blind, of the Wild Turkey Master's Keep Cornerstone release that just came out. So that was awesome to do. I really enjoyed doing that format. I really am glad that I've kind of started doing these. I should have done this a long time ago, but I'm really glad that I was able to start giving you guys reviews of stuff that just came out, so you can make some decisions for yourself and maybe you can get some flavor notes and figure out if it's something that you're going to like. Like I said in the review of the Cornerstone, but with my format, I never get to pick what whiskeys I review, and I've literally had whiskeys in the review pile since before I started this channel, which was in January of 2018. So there's been whiskeys that I have not hit in a year and a half. So obviously, like I said, it's blind. I don't get to choose, and as such, reviewing a bottle that came out 6 months ago that you can't get anymore, especially if it's like a batched bottle, like a batch of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof or a batch of Booker's, and it's not available anymore, what's the point of me reviewing it for you? It doesn't do you any good. So I want to make sure I got you guys the information that you want to see. So I'm glad to have started those. The Cornerstone was great. And as a matter of fact, actually, we'll hang on to it. We'll pour a little bit of this later and talk about it a little bit more. My bottles, I literally shot that review the day I bought the bottle, and I put it out a few days after that. So my bottle's literally only been open 1 week, but I'm really curious to see how a little bit of airtime has done it. Because for me, Wild Turkey always gets better after a few weeks of airtime, or at least a week or two. It definitely improves. It opens up. It gets rid of some of these qualities that for whatever reason get inside that bottle. And when you get a little bit of airtime, for whatever reason, it just feels like they go away, they dissipate, and that whiskey just turns fantastic. So let me finish up this last little bit of this deliciousness. All right. So Jeffrey Wack is asking, when new whiskeys come out, you could set up a blind flight in the category so you don't know which port is the new release and still do it blind. That's true. That's not a bad idea. Maybe it's something we can add to the line. I think, though, one thing I don't like about blind flights, and you guys can chime in and let me know what you think in the comments, but when you do blind flights, a lot of times it's not the best service to the whiskey. So maybe you can tell which one you like better out of the flight. Let's say you're doing a flight of 4. Maybe you know which one you like best, but I don't think it's the best way of providing you guys flavor notes, because especially if it's higher proof stuff, once you get through a flight, your palate is pretty well toast and you're not tasting all the flavors that you could be. So I think that doing a blind flight would be fun, but it probably wouldn't be doing the best to give you guys notes on the whiskey and let you know what I'm tasting and that kind of thing. So maybe we can add that to the repertoire, but I think it'd be tough for flavor notes. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. If I'm missing, I'm trying to grab you guys. And if you're tagging me in this new StreamYard business here, when you guys tag me, it doesn't highlight it like it does in YouTube. So it's making it difficult to catch when you guys are tagging me, but I will try to do my best here. DJ Beacon says, unfortunately, the younger ones still need more time in the barrel. So, yeah, that's always true. I mean, there's really not much you can do to cover up these young whiskeys. And like in the case of the 3 different Texas distilleries I reviewed, I've done a review of Balcones, I've done a review of Garrison Brothers, and just this week I did the review of Iron Root. And they're all newer distilleries, and they all tasted young. Like I said, there was additional flavors there to kind of figure that thing out, but you couldn't get away from the fact that they were young whiskey. And most, like specifically the Iron Root, I believe the Iron Root says it's 27 months. and there's just no covering that up. I've had young whiskeys where they blend them with older whiskeys, and that kind of helps sometimes. It obviously takes the edge off some of that young character. That's probably like really the only way you can do it. But additional barreling or smaller barrels or higher heat just really doesn't get it out. Hey, my buddy John's here. Good to see you, man. Glad you could make it to the live stream. Scott's running out of here. See you later, buddy. So let's take a pour of another whiskey here. I think it feels right to pour some of this Weller Antique. If any of you didn't catch any of the reviews, and I said it in pretty much every one, but I just started a new Instagram account called @MissionBottleKill, and it's mission_bottle_kill. And in that, I started it because I really want to promote people finishing off bottles of whiskey. We get these great bottles of whiskey, and we take a little pour here and there, and we save them for special occasions, and we never drink them. They sit in the bottle, and essentially, to some extent, at some point, they rot. They're going bad. They're oxidizing. The whiskey's not as good as it should be or as it used to be, and we let them go. So I really want to promote people finishing off these great bottles of whiskey. So I started Mission Bottle Kill. I'm taking pictures from all over Instagram of people finishing off their bottles of whiskey when they post their bottle kills. I'm reposting it on my page and tagging them so everybody knows, can see these great pictures. And I'm trying to cherry pick some of the best pictures out there. So I'm picking the best ones and the best bottles so you guys can see what whiskeys people are killing out there. So far, it's been 2 weeks. It's been a lot of fun. We got a couple hundred followers already on there. So if you haven't followed me there, go check it out. It's a bunch of fun. A lot of people emptying bottles and having a good time. So I'm trying to promote that. So maybe we can put a dent in this Weller Antique this afternoon. But yeah, Mission Bottle Kill has been a load of fun. But anyways, so let's ask you guys again, since we got some new people in the chat here. What are you guys drinking right now? Leave a message in the chat. And it's okay if you're drinking beer too. I know it's a hot summer day. Beer is acceptable. We don't only drink whiskey here. So I've got a couple other samples I'm going to be pouring here. And actually, maybe I'll get one poured in here. But I've been sitting on these for a while. I've been waiting for a live stream to drink them. But in the chat, Cooper57M was kind enough to have sent me some samples a while back. Actually, that's funny. He made a comment about it. So he killed off to Hudson Baby Bourbon Distillery Pick and Hudson Maple Cask Rye. So he sent me a couple releases from that same distillery from Hudson, and I really want to get to them and give them a taste. One of them, the maple cask he gave me, I'm saving for a Speedy sample review. So it is somewhere in the boxes over here. This one is the Hudson Manhattan Port Finished Rye. So we're going to pour a little bit of that. I did a review of the regular Hudson Manhattan Rye, which I thought was pretty decent. It wasn't a mind blower. It was a solid rye, a little bit youngish, but definitely still good. I can't remember what I rated it, probably like low 80s. A perfectly decent whiskey to drink. So DJ Beacon saying he hasn't seen OWA in about 12 months. And yeah, I mean, as you guys know, this stuff's getting scarce. It's getting hard to find. There's a new bottling out of it. When the price change came with OWA, it looks like they rebottled it because I've been seeing pictures on Instagram and from other people of corked bottles of OWA. As you can see, like my bottle is an older one and it's a screw top, but there are now corked bottles of Weller Antique out there. And I think it's kind of their move to try to make it feel like it's not a cheap whiskey anymore. But so yeah, like that bottle of OWA, I paid $27 for, and I think somebody else, Cooper57M is saying the same thing. They're paying the same ballpark. Now it's going for about $50 for the same whiskey. So whether it's worth doing, I don't know, but we'll see. Maybe we'll grab a new bottle and see if the cork makes a double the price difference. So yeah, he's saying that these whiskeys are good, young but good. So let's find out how. I've never had a finished version of this whiskey, so I'm really excited to try it. I can smell the sweetness from the port from here. It is incredibly sweet smelling. You definitely got some rye notes on it. This is definitely a rye whiskey. And it does still have that youthful kind of twang, grassy twang to it. Yeah, Bill's saying he finished off his port finish bottle yesterday. So, man, you need to post them on Instagram so I can put them up on Mission Bottle Kill, buddy. Get that Instagram account going if you don't already have one. So, first impressions on this, I would say it tastes a bit richer and better, like more complex than the standard Manhattan Hudson rye, or the Hudson Manhattan rye, excuse me. Definitely tastes pretty high in rye content too. I mean, it's very rye forward, lots of rye notes. A lot of the sweetness feels like it's coming from the finish and a little bit less from the ingredients in the whiskey. I just wish this whiskey was a couple years older. I mean, it always, maybe it's kind of like peat is to me or smoked whiskeys, but like I can't not taste it. I can't get over the young qualities a lot of the time when they stand out, and it really just feels so overwhelming to the whiskey. And I feel like that's still sort of the case here. I think the port's helping it out a bit, but it's definitely still feels pretty young. Keep these organized over here. All right, so we're going to move on to another sample. And this is going to be another Hudson whiskey that Bill gave me. This is their baby bourbon single barrel, and I've never had their bourbon before, so it'll be fun to try this out. I didn't do a Speedy sample review of this because this is a distillery only release, as was the port finished. So I really didn't see the point, as most of you weren't going to be able to get them. But again, it just smells young. I don't know what the age on their bourbons are, if it's the same kind of age range as their rye is. Yeah, you just don't get a lot of those standard bourbon characters. It's a lot of the lighter fruits, lighter characters. It's definitely got a young grassy note to it. So again, we're just in that ballpark of young whiskey. So I can't get over young. Maybe it's a problem. Cooper 57M is asking if I get any mint, and I'm assuming he's asking about mint on the port finished rye. Let me get back to that one. We'll find out about some mint. I would say like I felt the mint, not tasted the mint, if that makes sense. Like I almost had that like effervescent light quality to them. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the power of suggestion, but I definitely feel like it felt minty, and there's maybe the slightest hint of mint if I'm looking for it. Not very upfront in your face, but it's definitely a touch of it there. Let's see what else is going on in the chat here. Yeah, he's saying that they are young whiskeys. They're less than 4 years. And guys, you can just taste it. And if you don't have a problem with young whiskey, go for it. But for me, young whiskey is off-putting. It's almost like an off flavor to me. Let me go back to the bourbon here. And I find it really unfortunate a lot of the time too, because a lot of times you see like the hints that these whiskeys are going to be good. You know, they're going to be fantastic. Like I found that with Iron Root. Like the characters I was getting in Iron Root almost had that double barrel quality that you get on something like Woodford Reserve Double Barrel, where you get a lot of chocolate, a lot of char, a lot of bitter coffee. And I love tasting those flavors in there, and they're definitely not standard to what you would get in a normal bourbon. So it's cool that they're getting that kind of stuff. And once they can shake the young flavor, it'll be awesome. Those whiskeys are going to be fantastic. I'm very confident in that. So hopefully they get a little bit more age on them, and we can start liking them. So let's see. What do we got going on in the chat, my friends? I haven't been paying a ton of attention. I've been trying to catch your guys' comments here and there. You guys are chatting a little bit about some of these bourbons. Someone's saying, Nick is saying he did not like his pour of Hudson Baby Bourbon. And I won't say that I dislike it. I think there's some good qualities there. I think it's just a lot of people are like me, are put off by the young qualities in these whiskeys. So who knows? I understand, and we've talked about this on like another round and stuff before, where if you guys haven't, before I just get into it, if you guys haven't checked out another round, it's a rotating whiskey community roundtable that we do between myself, Bourbon Blind, Scott from My Bourbon Journey, Bobby from Adventures in Whiskey, Scott from Scotch Test Dummies, Jason from the Mash and Drum, and we all get together once a month and just talk about whiskey, talk about whiskey news, talk about the latest and greatest, and have a little fun, have a couple drinks, and share some insights with you guys. So we do that once a month towards the end of the month. So hopefully in the next, I think in about a week or a week and a half, we'll be doing another one of those, and it'll probably be on Kyle's channel, I would imagine, but we got to figure that out. Anyways, but yeah, another round. We've talked about this before, is that it's these whiskey distilleries have to make money. I get it. The whiskey business model is terrible. The fact that you have to make a product and sit on it for the better part of 4 or 5 years before you can make any money is a terrible business model. It's horrible. So what a lot of distilleries do to combat that, a lot of them source whiskey. They go to MGP or some of these other large distilleries that have surplus whiskey that they can buy barrels of. They take it and they repackage it and brand it as their own. Some of them, like Joseph Magnus, do things to the whiskey. So they take that whiskey in and they then will barrel it in used, sherry barrels or port barrels or things like that to kind of make it their own. Some people just straight rebottle the MGP juice, which for me is great. I love MGP whiskey, so I'm not mad at that. I am mad at the prices they've been marking them up to lately. You got to pay $80 or $100 for some of these bottles of MGP whiskey, which isn't cool. I'm not willing to pay that, and a lot of people probably aren't either. If any of you noticed in the news lately, MGP has kind of been tanking in their stock prices, and they're not hitting their projected earnings. And a big reason for that has probably been a lot of people have been backing off buying their whiskey because they have been raising the prices consistently, and their prices have gone up so much over the last few years that people just can't source whiskey from there anymore. If a lot of you recall, Smooth Ambler always used to source whiskey for their Old Scout from MGP. So their Old Scout single barrels were always MGP juice, and they were fantastic. There was such good whiskey in those bottles. But now if you get the new 13-year single barrel select release, I've got it over here, but I'm not going to get up and grab it since it's just me today. But if you grab the single barrel select, that whiskey is sourced from Dickel, and it is a totally different whiskey. And Dickel especially is a whiskey that is a love it or hate it whiskey. Either you really like it or you really don't, because it's got a very unique quality to it. It is very different than a standard bourbon, even though it wouldn't necessarily be it's technically a bourbon. I think they have it as a bourbon on the bottle too. So, but it is, charcoal filtered, and it definitely has its own very like mineral. A lot of people bring up Flintstone's vitamins when talking about Dickel, and it's just got a very mineral-like character to it, and it is nothing at all like MGP juice. So, but anyways, we're getting off on a tangent. But that being said, this is how distilleries make money, and for me, I think that is the best model: is source your whiskey, make money sourcing the whiskey, bring in juice from the outside, and do something to it to make it your own, or repackage it, rebrand it, be transparent about it, let people know what they're getting, but definitely do something to make money other than putting out young whiskey. Because I can tell you, for me, if it wasn't for having a whiskey review channel, some of these whiskeys that I'm trying, I would never try anything else from them again. And I don't know how you guys feel. Let me know. Leave a comment. When you get these whiskeys and you taste them and they're young, do you ever go back to that distillery again and try more of their products? At least anytime soon? For me, I definitely wouldn't be trying some of this stuff out again for another couple of years. And that's just because I know what's going on and why it's going on. For the average consumer who grabs a bottle of young whiskey off the shelf, tries it and hates it, I don't think they're going back. I wouldn't. If I didn't have some of the insight that I do have, I wouldn't be going back to it. So, yeah, let me know. What do you guys think? Would you be going back to these whiskeys? I don't know. It's a tough choice. And like I said, it's a tough business model. I don't know how these guys do it. So anyways, what do we got going on in the chat? MGP rye. Yeah, he likes MGP rye, the 95% rye. And I think that's a fantastic one too. They're not easy to come by. Like a lot of people source that whiskey and put it in a bottle. So I don't know. One sec here. Anyways, I don't know who's putting out the 95% rye right now and in a repackaging it, but the 95% rye can be really good. Although I will tell you that I like the 95% rye, but they got to have some age on them. They got to be like the 7 years and up. I had a Smooth Ambler rye that was the 95% mash bill. That was the 7-year-old, and my God, was it good. But I've also had one that was like a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, and I didn't like it as much. It had a lot more sharp notes on it, a lot of harsh edges to it. It didn't just have that kind of nice round quality that the extra few years added to it. So let me get back to a sip of this Weller Antique. So anyways, guys, let's move on to, one sec here. Let's move on to a pour of this Booker's. Let me know in the comments if you guys are Booker's fans. I enjoy Booker's. I enjoy Jim Beam products. I don't know that Booker's is necessarily my favorite. A lot of people think that it is. For me, Booker's, because of the age, isn't quite as good as the Knob Creek single barrel store picks that you can get. So, as I'm sure most of you know, the Knob Creek single barrel store picks that are coming out these days are mainly between 13 and 15 years old, and they go for about $50. So in terms of value, there's really not much better value out there than a Knob Creek single barrel store pick. It's just you're not getting much better whiskey than that, as long as that's the profile that you like. You know, Jim Beam typically has a bit of a nutty character, but what's nice about the older single barrel store picks is you get so much oak and vanilla and a lot of those sweet characters from the wood. So they're fantastic. DJ Beacon saying he enjoys Booker's, but at $80, he's going with that single barrel store pick, and I agree. Now I can get Booker's still, and up until recently I could get it for $50. It recently got a price hike at my local store that I go to get it, and it went up to $60. And I think at $60 is kind of about the limit for me on Booker's. I don't want to pay more than $60 for a bottle, but I think it is definitely worth the $60. But still, at $50, the single barrel store pick Knob Creeks are better. So is it worth it? It's hard to say. If you're comparing, I would always take the single barrel store pick. But if we're not comparing, we're just saying, is it worth the $60 compared to other whiskeys on the market? I would say that it is. Now, Knob Creeks are generally in the 6 year, or excuse me, Booker's are generally in the 6 years and change range, which is why I don't think they're quite necessarily the best whiskey. I mean, I think they could be, I wish they would put them closer to at least like 8 or 9 years. I think it would really, really benefit from being that. And I'm not quite sure why they keep it in the 6-year range, but I mean, this one smells fantastic. And like I told you guys in the review and before, it does so much better with some air. This bottle was harsh and sharp, and I thought I'd given it a higher score, but when I looked it up after I did the review, I realized I gave it the initial review of this bottle of Booker's got a 79, which doesn't mean it's bad. It just was nothing special. And I think now it's kind of really developed. That airtime's allowed it to open up and a lot of the flavors to come out. So definitely a big improvement with age. This one's got a ton of vanilla on it, a bit of butterscotch, a lot of sweetness that it really didn't have at first. Definitely got a nice fruity character to it. The heat has died down, because Booker's is so high proof. Like this one is 125.9 proof. It's a very high proof whiskey, and allowing it to breathe and some of that alcohol to evaporate likely has really allowed it to be much more easy drinking than it was before, because it used to be a little bit tough to drink in the sense that like it was just hot. So I think it really rounded out the flavors, let it be more balanced. It used to be kind of off in one direction, and now we've got some fruity characters, we've got some vanilla and oaky characters, we've got some of that kind of standard Jim Beam, slight little nutty character, although that nutty character has really died down now this bottle's been open for a long time. And I think it's good because sometimes these Jim Beam whiskeys, they come out so like peanut forward. And while I like the flavor, that's not all I want to taste. I want to taste a lot of different flavors. So anyways, I think this bottle is fantastic. I think it's opened up a ton. And this bottle's been open for over a year, and it's still tasting fantastic. And in my opinion, still getting better. So Booker's is definitely one of those that you can sit on for a while and it doesn't go bad on you. So one sec here. I'm just trying to see if I can get one of my guests on here pretty quick. Now that we've kind of gone through all our whiskeys and stuff that we did this week for the Bonanza. And we're going to talk about we did the review of the Cornerstone. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, hopefully with one of my guests here. And we'll do that in a sec. Oh, Bill, I couldn't agree more. No, I don't like tooting my own horn. I think, when it comes to palates, I think experience and training yourself is really the only way to go. And I think that this channel has been great for me in developing my palate. I definitely think I had a good palate coming into this. For those of you that don't know, I've talked about this several times, but I was into craft beer for a long, long time before I ever really got deep into whiskey. And so my palate really developed through the craft beer and, bourbon barrel aged stouts and these different things. I really got to hone my palate on those things. So when I came to whiskey, I think I had a reasonably good palate, not necessarily honed to whiskey, but I knew how to differentiate flavors, and I knew how to break things down. So it made it easy for me to transition into whiskey. So when I started getting more into whiskey, it was a little bit easier to start off in that process. But I mean, really the differentiator for me on improving my palate, at least over the course of since I started this channel, is this channel. And specifically doing blind reviews. It's one thing to know what you're drinking and break it down. You kind of know what to expect and you know what to look for. When you're doing a blind review of a whiskey, and I encourage you guys to do this at home when you're by yourself, if you have a spouse or a friend or a roommate that can pour a whiskey for you, go to the cabinet, just ask them, go to the cabinet and grab an open bottle and pour me some. And you just sit there and break it down and drink it and taste it and see what it tastes like to you. I think that is so key into developing your palate, because you're figuring out what you're tasting. And then it's nice to compare that later to what should be there. So once you find out what the whiskey is and you sip on it some more, you can figure out what you should have been tasting, what you were tasting, what you missed in the blind review. And you can kind of train your brain and your palate of how to approach these things and how to find those flavors and what flavors to look for. So definitely drink blind. I mean, drink whiskey blind. It is super helpful in developing your palate. Grab a sip of water real quick. There we go. Scott says he likes the format and makes for a true unbiased review, and it made him do his own blind taste test, which if I had helped anybody kind of do their own blind taste test or enjoy whiskey or pick out a whiskey that they might like, I think that's all I asked for on this channel. I started this channel to do that, to help people find whiskeys that they might like, because I've spent a lot of time drinking whiskey that I didn't like. And so it was always helpful to find reviewers that my palate was similar to and could help me decide whether I should or shouldn't buy a whiskey. And I'm not trying to knock anybody out there. A lot of guys do a lot of great reviews, and I'm not saying they're even intentionally biased, but just knowing what you're drinking gives you a little bit of bias. If you know, and I brought this up when I was doing the review of Cornerstone, but if you know that you have paid a high price for a whiskey. So let's say with the example of Cornerstone that you paid $170 for that bottle of whiskey, you're going to have certain expectations of the whiskey, and you're going to have a certain idea of what that whiskey should or shouldn't taste like. And in your mind, you're really going to be hoping it tastes good because you paid so damn much for it. So I think that's part of the problem. So, hey, one of my guests just joined me. We're going to be clicking him in here. And today, hopefully he's got his bottle of Cornerstone ready, because I want to talk about it. We've got Jason in from the Mash and Drum. What is up, my friend?
How are you doing, buddy? What's going on?
Not much, man. I'm glad you could make it, brother.
Yeah, I literally just got home and kind of ran down, did a quick setup. So thanks for having me on, man.
No, I'm glad you could make it. And the reason I wanted Jason to come on specifically, not because I don't enjoy his company, because I enjoy his company too, but I wanted him to come on and talk about Cornerstone. We both recently just put out the review of Cornerstone. I did mine earlier this week. He did his probably like 4 or 5 days before I did mine. So we both did a review of it. Jason also did a live stream with Rarebird 101, who's an awesome dude who is like the guru of wild turkey. And they did a great stream. It was awesome. A lot of good information discussed, but I really wanted to talk about how this whiskey's doing now. We've both had our bottles open. Mine's been a week. Yours has probably been a couple, I would guess. Like, has this whiskey opened up, and is it tasting better? So let me break my bottle out, pour a little bit, and
I got mine. I got mine right here. So
there you go.
Let me, I'll give it a pour.
And for those of you that don't own one of these Master's Keep whiskeys, the boxes are, again, I don't want to say that a nice packaging and presentation makes a whiskey worth $170, but it sure doesn't hurt.
It's definitely one of the nicer. It's definitely one of the nicer packages you can get. You know, for like a collector's item. It's
absolutely.
Nice.
I think they did a great job with it, and like I said, it makes you feel a little bit better when you pay an ungodly amount of money for a whiskey. And I don't know about you, and I said this in my review of it, but this cork and stopper is probably the nicest one I've ever had on a bottle. I mean, it's weighty, it's hefty, it's metal, it's wood. It feels substantial, and maybe that's just a shallow observation of it, but damn, having a little hefty stopper just makes you feel like it's worth something.
Yeah, I think between that and the Boss Hog cork, both of them are pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I've never had Boss Hog. I can't bring myself to pay $500 for a bottle of whiskey. So
I wouldn't buy 500. Yeah, I had a pour of it. I would not buy it for 500. But yeah,
I need to grab myself a clean glass here.
Yeah, I have been. Cooper 57 said I've been enjoying it, and you know I have enjoyed this. I have shared a good amount of it too, though, because I know a few buddies of mine that were really contemplating on buying it. They came over and we just kind of did a share, and I definitely had them taste it to see if they liked it, and it was kind of split down the middle. I gotta say, out of the 5 buddies that I had that tried it, 3 of them fell in love with it, and 2 of them were like, "Meh, I don't have to spend the money on that." So,
I mean, if you're looking at it with the perspective of money, I can understand saying that, but I can't. At least for me, and I've only had a couple tastes of this, but at least for me, you can't deny that it's good. I mean, it's definitely good whiskey. Is it worth the money? That I can definitely understand being split on that, but you can't tell me it's not good.
Yeah. Listen, it's it's one of those bottles that and I talked about this at length with David even after we did our after we talked about a little bit on the live show that I had. It wasn't anything that kind of blew us away, but it also is one of those rye whiskeys that as you get some air into it, it really does change a lot. Some of the sweeter and a little bit of the we both got like this cherry, like this medicinal cherry astringent note a little bit on the nose in the beginning. And then as you get some air in it, some of the age now start to show through here. I'm still getting now that really like that rich oak profile and that kind of wild turkey cinnamon seasoned oak and a little bit of that rick house type smell is kind of invaded the bottle as well. So it is evolving a little bit. So yeah, I mean, it's a really enjoyable rye whiskey. It just really depends on if $175 is worth it for you. I said this in my review. If you're a rye whiskey sipper that you don't have ryes very often, and you could live with sipping Rittenhouse or Pikesville, even Russell's Reserve single barrel rye, even Russell's Reserve 6-year, then that would probably be enough for you. But if you're a real rye whiskey enthusiast and you love sitting down with a bottle like this with a lot of age, because a lot of rye whiskey bottles that are older or even the ones that are higher in rye content are more expensive. So if that's kind of your thing, I think for a bottle like this, you would really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, like you said, I gotta do more tasting of it and get through some of this bottle and kind of see where it goes. But my initial impressions are it is very good. It is a fantastic rye. Is it worth $175 is the problem. And I think for a lot of people, the answer is going to be no. And like you guys mentioned, if you're a rye head and this is just something you got to have, and $175 isn't a big deal for you, go for it. But yeah, if the price of the whiskey is a problem for you and spending that kind of money is a problem for you, definitely don't go buy it. It's not worth that kind of money if you're just not so into this whiskey or you want to collect it or you got the whole set. Like I have the whole line of Master's Keep whiskeys, and that's really what drove me to continue purchasing this one at the price hike. All the other ones I've gotten for about $100 to $120. So when this is $170, it's tough. But
see now with this being open now a little bit longer, this smells a little bit now closer to Russell's Reserve single barrel. So I feel like the nose has maybe kind of softened a little bit. It's not as intense as it was when I first opened it or when it was like halfway. I mean, it's probably about halfway now, but it's a little bit more similar now to Russell's Reserve single barrel. But the thing that puts this whiskey over the top, and I keep saying, is the finish on this thing goes on for miles. And it's easily one of the longest finishes I've ever had in any whiskey, let alone a rye, a bourbon, a scotch, whatever you want to call it. The finish on this thing goes on for weeks. You can just sip on it, and the cinnamon spice and the rye spice and the sweetness that kind of goes together with that. It just goes on forever. It's me and David still talk about it every now and then. Like, I can't believe the finish on this thing. And still, even at this length in the bottle, the finish is still ridiculous.
Yeah, the finish is one of the standouts to this thing for sure. It just, like you said, it goes on forever. And that, to me, I mean, that's worth something. When you have a whiskey that finishes long and you don't need to be taking sips, let's just say on a normal whiskey, you're taking a sip every minute. On this whiskey, you can go longer. You can enjoy it longer because you got these flavors just going on for days. There's no need to take another sip. You could go, 10 minutes and not take another sip.
Yeah, it's a really great balance. I mean, listen, this is a Kentucky rye. So this is a barley rye. A lot of people think there's only about 52% rye in the mash bill for Wild Turkey rye. So, it's a sweeter rye. So it's not going to kill you with spice, but the balance you get between the creaminess and the sweetness all up front, and then you couple that with that rye, that really spicy finish, it really is a beautiful rye whiskey. It just, at that price point, it's just really what you want to spend. But I do find some similarities in here with Pikesville a little bit. I mean, Pikesville has a little bit more of a nutty characteristic coming from Heaven Hill, but Pikesville probably doesn't have as long of a finish like this does, but it's definitely a good option.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think they nailed the proof point on this one too. This proof, it got enough proof where it's got a ton of full flavor, but it is easily drinkable. Like, it is not hot. It's not off-putting. Like I said, you don't want to keep taking sips because you've just got so much flavor going on, such a long finish, but you could easily just sit there and keep drinking this whiskey.
Yeah.
It's not hard to drink.
You could sip this all night. I had a buddy of mine that's really into cigars, and he absolutely loves this with a cigar. He said between the cigar and then the finish and the sweetness on this, it goes really well. So if any of you guys are cigar connoisseurs out there, then it's definitely worth thinking about.
I've never gotten into, I'm not a big cigar guy in the first place, but like, I always thought the idea of drinking beers or whiskeys with cigars is like, you don't want to drink this super expensive whiskey and just be tainting it with this like cigar mouth. People love it. And I guess I got to give it a try just to see, but it's never been my thing.
It depends on what you like. It's, I'm not a big cigar guy. I like one every now and again, and they are good with some specific whiskeys. So, but really good stuff. Yeah, I'm enjoying this Wild Turkey rye. I didn't mind spending the money on it. I obviously wanted to review it and get it out there, and I'm just a huge Wild Turkey fan anyway. So,
yeah, I'm the same. And like I said, a lot of what drove me to do it was I wanted to keep going through the collection. Like, the Master's Keep line is one of the few whiskeys that I've gotten to get from the beginning. So I've gotten them all. And so that's kind of been a fun thing. Same thing with like Little Book. I've been grabbing all the first two versions of Little Book. I'll obviously be grabbing the one that's coming out now. And I think everybody else is going to be trying to grab it too, which may make it more difficult this time around. But anyways, Cooper 57M, Bill says, sounds like he needs to get one of these bottles of whiskey. At his age, he's got to spend his money on something. You can't take it with you, buddy. Go spend that stuff.
Yeah, and even Sparky Mule just said, Pikesville rye is indeed good, but it's only 51% rye. And those are Kentucky ryes. Those aren't, Maryland or Indiana ryes with that high rye content. So it really depends on what you like.
This isn't a rye for people. I mean, this is a rye for people that don't like rye. I mean, like it definitely falls in that vein of when it's a Kentucky rye and it's a low rye. You mainly get a lot of sweet. I mean, it's very similar to bourbon notes. You get a bit more spice than you do on a standard bourbon, but it's not off-putting. It definitely, if you aren't really big into rye and you got the opportunity to try this, I would do it. It's a great, I wouldn't call it a great segue rye at the price, but I mean, like, it's just a good example of how rye can taste, and that rye doesn't necessarily need to be this super spicy, crazy thing that you don't like.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a rye video right now. I'm doing kind of a top 5, top 6, like go-to available rye video that I'm working on, because this really prompted me to think about it. Like, I'm just gonna make a kind of a video on that and kind of go through it. And I think there were a couple surprises in there that when I was like tasting some different ryes that I was like, oh, I think I would take that one over that one. So I'll let that be a little bit of a teaser for you guys.
That'll be cool. And man, I know my bottle's only been open for a week, and I'm still getting a ton of that cherry note on this thing. I don't know if yours still has that for being open.
The cherry note and the finish on this is the differentiator between a Pike's Fill or another, or like Wild Turkey 101 rye or the Russell's Reserve single barrel rye. On the nose, me and David found the Russell's Reserve and this to be pretty similar, but the palate was a completely different story, and of course the finish.
Yeah, I haven't had the Russell's Reserve single barrel rye in a while. This has prompted me. I'm definitely going to go be picking up a bottle of that. I'm definitely going to be getting a bottle of the 101 rye too. There's these ones you see them all the time, and I don't grab them necessarily just because it's, as reviewers, we're always looking for the newest and latest and greatest and something we haven't done, but I definitely need to get those ones done because they were always good, and I just don't know why I don't go back to them, other than the fact that I'm always trying to buy something new. But
yeah, Cooper said don't overlook some of the Canadian ryes and Royal Crown Harvest Rye. Yeah, that's actually the Harvest Rye is one I gotta try to. I have to try that, and the regular Lot 40, which I really like too. But yeah, I gotta. You know what? That's a good idea, man. I gotta try that Harvest Rye before I create my final list, because I've had that one a little bit before, and it is really good.
Yeah, I haven't dove down into the Canadian stuff too much, and I think a lot of that's because we don't get in the States. We don't get a lot of the good Canadian whiskey. They store it all up in Canada and hoard it, as a good country should. So
ADHD physician said don't overlook Canadian girls either. Dang. I would agree with that, ADHD. Some Canadian women are actually really gorgeous.
I did review the Masterson's 10-year rye, which is a Canadian rye, and that was really good.
Yeah.
Price-wise, I think it's a little off-putting for most. I got a really good price on it. I think I only paid like $40 or $50 for it, but I think generally it goes for like closer to 70, which is tough for like a 90 proof whiskey.
Yeah, but there's kind of a big movement in New York to create. They're kind of creating their own category called Empire Ryes. So it's got it's just basically ryes created, or rye that's specifically grown in New York and the New York area that they source to create rye whiskeys. So like Hudson rye uses this Empire Rye type recipe, and there are a couple of others that use an Empire Rye. They actually say on the label this is an Empire Rye. So it's kind of like it's kind of like an unlisted category that's out there, but some of the Empire Ryes I've had are just not up to par.
There was another state that was doing this too. I can't remember which one it was. There was another state recently where they're making their own variant of bourbon. The rules behind it where they had to source the corn from that state. I can't remember which state it was.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of movement towards that. Like a lot of states are trying to make their unique, whiskey or spirit products. And I don't know how I feel about that, but I don't know that's necessarily going to make for the best product if you're forcing people to source grains from certain places. I mean, I get that they're trying to promote commerce and the economy of the state, but I guess they don't have to call it.
So if you had to rate the Master's Keeps, so they've released 4 of them now. So how would you rate them?
All right, so this one's going to be tough only because
I know it's tough because this one is a rye, so it's kind of different. The other 3 were bourbons.
There's that, and I feel like they're all really different.
They are. They're extremely different, and it's not so much a matter of rating, I think, but I think it's just more. Well,
it's more a matter of personal preference.
Let's put it this way: if you were lining up all 4 of them, what would you think you would go to more than likely the most? I mean, they're all usually good, but as far as like what kind of bourbon you like to sip on more, what would be the one that you would probably lean to and go to most?
That's a tough question because I think that changes my answer from what you originally asked me. So if you asked me which one did I think was the best, I would probably say Revival I like the best as
Yeah.
an overall whiskey. But if you're asking me which one I would go to, it would probably be, I mean, price aside, like if it was just the whiskey, I mean, up
Yeah, I'm
until now,
not even counting price. I'm just saying flavor wise.
I really like this rye. I think it's really good. And I really like, out of the first three, I would definitely have said Decades. I think Decades is probably just like the most straightforward standard. It didn't go off in any one direction really. It was just a really good solid whiskey. So as to like for an everyday go-to, I would grab that. I'd say Decades probably, but I think Revival tastes better than Decades. But
Yeah.
Revival was a bit sweeter, and it's not something I would necessarily want to drink all the time. I've had 17 year, but I've only had it twice. And the first time I had it was a fresh pour, which I hear with that whiskey, you need to let it breathe a little bit. And I actually have a bottle and I haven't opened it. I'm thinking I'm going to do it on the channel. So hopefully I'll just do that soon just for shits and giggles. And we can, we can see if,
Yeah, I mean, it's like you couldn't do, like, I remember somebody asked me, oh, you should do all the Master's Keeps blind and see which one you like better. I'm like, you can't because they're so different. You're going to know what is what. The only one that might be difficult is the Decades and the 17, depending on how your palate is. But
I don't think it would be that tough though because of the proof difference.
Well, yeah. So yeah, if you're kind of, but I'm only saying that one might be tough depending on where it falls in your lineup and your palate gets a little bit fried.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe it might be a little bit hard to pick that one out. But Revival and the Rye are so completely different. So
no, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, Decades was, I really love Decades. But I mean, that's more of like an oaky kind of spicy flavor profile. Revival, I was probably the fastest one I went through. I kept going back to that one because it got better and better and better every time I got to it. But now, I mean, this rye too is I mean, look how fast already. It's like, I mean, I know I've shared some of it, but I'm a little bit sad.
Yeah, and I actually have bottles of all of them, and I've only opened my Cornerstone. I've never opened a bottle of any of the other ones. I just have them. And so I'm done with that. We're not doing that anymore. Yeah. I started Mission Bottle Kill, and I mean it. So we're going to be opening these bottles. I'm going to do it on the channel. I'm not going to do it blind. There's no point in that. But I'm definitely going to open the bottles and just talk about them. They're good whiskey. And they're, at least with Wild Turkey, because Wild Turkey, for whatever reason, or either that the releases were either bigger or Wild Turkey is just maybe not quite as popular as some of the other limited releases out there. But these still sit on the shelves. Like you can still get by me at the big box stores at Total Wine. You can still get Revival and you can still get Decades. Wow. In the 17 year, I don't see them very often, but they're still out there here and there. I see them every once in a while. So
what are they selling the Decades for? I might need you to grab me another one because mine's gone.
120, 130.
Oh, that's not bad. Yeah,
no, if you 119 or 129, one of the two.
If you see that again, let me know. Whiskey Throttle's in the house. Daniel's here.
Hey, what's up, brother? I have not talked to Daniel in a minute.
I know he's been haven't seen him lately. Maybe he's having a busy summer. What's up, Daniel? My fellow. What does he call us? Or what does he call the Italian guys? Jabronis. my fellow jabroni from
Jabronis.
My fellow jabroni from Canada.
Yeah, he comes on after we finish talking about Canadian whiskey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I think Revival is my favorite though. If I have to pick one, I think Revival's it.
Yeah. Revivals has gotten so good. It's really good. And I mean, mine's gone. I saved the bottle though. I'm using it for an infinity blend.
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, again, and it doesn't really make it worth buying because the bottles are nice. But I mean, if you guys have not checked out these bottles, I mean, this little raised turkey on here is just gorgeous, man. It's a beautiful shape. The raised glass is awesome. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily make up for the price, but it helps because it's a fantastic presentation.
Yeah, I mean, some guys I talk to like, I don't care about the box. I just want the whiskey. So it's like, all right, well, that's. But I mean, you have to, you kind of have to factor that into the price a little bit. So
Yeah, if you could pay $120 for a whiskey that was good, or $120 for a whiskey that was good with a nice box, you're taking the one that's good with a nice box. I mean,
kind of true. So before I jumped on, what did you blind sample?
so we did I just did a quick blind Speedy sample review, and the one that came up was Wild Turkey Rare Breed, the 116. So,
Oh, nice.
the blind live thing was just kind of a hoot for fun, but it was fun to get a good whiskey on it. And I mentioned in the review, I thought, and it's been a while since I've cracked that bottle, I thought it tasted slightly better when I had first opened it. I thought the fresh pour was a little bit better than the several month old pour, which is kind of strange for Wild Turkey because usually it's the opposite for me. Like usually they definitely improve with time. And again, it could have just been my palate at this point. I mean, I haven't been drinking anything yet. It was my first pour of the day, so you know how that goes. But actually, let me go back to that. Let me throw down one of these here. Get a little sip of turkey going.
I think you just got something from said Daniel Whiskey Throttle Jabroni.
Whiskey Throttle Jabroni. Oh man, it's our first super chat of the stream. Well, thank you for 99 cents Canadian, my friend. What is that, like a quarter American?
About.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. Every little bit helps. We don't talk about it enough because nobody wants to sit here and put their hand out. But realistically, at the end of the day, these channels are not cheap. I'm sure Jason can tell you guys the same thing. We spend a fortune getting this whiskey and trying to get this stuff for you to review for you guys. So we definitely appreciate when you guys help us out. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to feel too bad for us buying more whiskey. So.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, poor guy's got to buy more whiskey. Damn it.
Though, if we're being real about it, though, I definitely buy. If it wasn't for this channel, I buy way more whiskey than I probably wouldn't if it wasn't for the channel. Like,
I would see that, but I find myself using any super chats when I'm using it now more often towards merch stuff. Like, I have new shirts that I'm making, and the coins and glasses, and now I'm working on hats and stuff to have. So yeah, it's always fun. There's always something new. It's fun, but yeah, mainly it's for the whiskey. I actually just got this bottle, which I'm really excited about. This was just released in Texas not too long ago. This is the French Oak from Balcones.
Oh, cool. I've only had one Balcones whiskey, and I did love it.
Dark it is.
That is super dark.
It's like root beer, and the French Oak, man, the spice that it gives this stuff is just I love it.
Yeah, I only ever reviewed the Actually, it's the only Balcones I've ever tried is the Balcones Rye, and I didn't love it. It was not up my wheelhouse.
The Balcones Rye?
Yeah.
That tastes like pure chocolate.
I didn't get chocolate, man. It really just.
Oh wait. Did you have the cask strength or the regular one?
No, it was the regular one.
Okay, I haven't had the regular. The cask strength was like a chocolate bomb.
Yeah. And I don't know if all their whiskeys taste this way. I do have more of their whiskeys, but it just tasted. Like all these Texas whiskeys that I've tried, they just taste young. And this week during my, I did a review every day, and one of the whiskeys I reviewed was the Iron Root. Root Harbinger. Mm-hmm. And I had really high expectations because there's been a lot of hype behind these guys, making good whiskey, and it was okay, but it just tasted like a young whiskey that was getting covered up by them, like maybe the Texas heat added a little bit to it because there's definitely some big coffee notes, big chocolate notes that you certainly wouldn't get on a regular whiskey, but it still tasted like young whiskey with coffee and chocolate.
Yeah, I would agree. There's some of that, but I feel like Iron Root and Balcones do probably the best job. And I know there's some other really good Texas distilleries out there, but I think those two kind of do the best job of kind of combining that Texas like funkiness with really just all around great quality and flavor. So if there's two distilleries from Texas that I would recommend to anyone to try first, it would be either of those two.
Yeah, and I don't want to judge either of them based on one whiskey because that's all I've had from either. So I'll definitely be trying more of their stuff, and I have more of both of their stuff. So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to trying it.
The Texas single malts that Balcones makes are just really delicious. They're doing such cool stuff. I actually just got this one too, which is another Texas whiskey, which was highly recommended, called Witherspoon. Straight bourbon. I don't know if you've ever seen this one.
No, I've never seen that.
So this is a single barrel Texas whiskey, 100 proof. I don't think there's an age statement on it. Nope, no age statement, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting into. I'm probably going to do a live stream with just some Texas whiskey. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
I kind of wanted to do the same thing, but my thought process was, I think I'm going to call it, I think I hate Texas whiskey, and I'm going to try a bunch.
That's awesome, man.
But we'll see.
Oh, man. That Wild Turkey Rye is good.
That Wild Turkey Rye is good. I would love to put it next to Revival and really decide which one I like better. Because, I really like them both.
Mm-hmm.
I really like them all. And actually, I think it's stupid to do blind, but I would love to do drink them all side by side. Just to do it, just to taste them and be like, talk about which ones are better. Because in my head, Revival's better, but I've never drank it next to any of the other ones. So
I think Revival wins just on price for me because I got that bottle for $130.
Yeah, I can still get that bottle for $130. I just bought another. I bought another one the other day just to get it. Oh man, Nick Zangotsis. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Zangotsis, $20. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. That is definitely worth a cheers to you.
Cheers, Nick. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for helping. Thanks for
helping out the channel.
Yeah, thanks for throwing some.
You guys know all the ads I make you watch and the money you guys contribute for these super chats all goes back to the channel. So whether it be buying whiskey, I really want to get new equipment for the channel. I would love to have a new camera that would help me do this stuff a little bit easier. Right now, I've always been using a digital SLR camera that's probably like, my Canon camera is probably like 7 or 8 years old. No, it's not that old. It's probably like 6 years old. So it's kind of not the best equipment to work with. So I'd love to be able to give you guys a little bit more production quality. So definitely everything you guys contribute to the channel goes back into the channel. I'm not trying to make money on this thing. I'm just trying to give you guys good videos. So thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate you, brother.
Actually, Vegas Art brought up a good point. He said, I think the ironwood flavor oddities could be due to the different corns they use. So yeah, he's right. So when I did the Harbinger, when I was doing the research on it, they use 3 different types of corn in their in that whiskey. So they use a regular corn, they use a purple heirloom corn, and they also use the bloody butcher corn. So, and the bloody butcher corn and the purple corn from my research has what is it was I think it had more starch and less sugar. So it gives it more of a it imparts a little bit more of a nutty characteristic to it rather than the sweetness that we're used to with a straight yellow corn. So some of those flavors are a little bit different to get used to, especially when you're kind of using 3 different at the same time. So that could also factor into something that's a little bit off that you're not used to. But I think if you had a bunch of Texas whiskey side by side, I think it would stand out for you.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want to judge Texas whiskey too harshly. I've only tried very few. It's just the theme for me from each of, and they were all 3 different distilleries, was just youth. And I've always heard up until I started drinking them that Texas whiskey ages faster because it's so damn hot in Texas. And I don't think that that's true. I really don't think it's true.
Yeah.
I think there's things that happen differently, and I think they do get some unique flavors and qualities, but they don't age any faster. There's no getting away from young whiskey, at least not that I've found yet.
Hey, Eric Waite's in the house. How you doing, Eric?
Eric Waite, what's up, buddy?
My man from Cali.
If you guys haven't checked out Eric's channel, he does a ton of good content, and occasionally he dances. So if you're in for a good dance, go check out Eric's channel.
He said he just woke up from a nap. Oh, that's nice.
Hey, when you get up there in years, you gotta take a little rest. So, anyways, let's get a recap here. We're gonna finish this thing up probably the next, I don't know, 15 minutes maybe. Anybody got anything good drinking out there? What do we got in our glasses? Is it still too early for you? It's 2:15 in California. I think that's perfectly good drinking time on a weekend.
Yeah, it's 5:14 here, so I'm gonna have some whiskey for dinner, I guess.
Yes. I mean, realistically, when you get down to it, these things are made up of grains, and you got sugars, and all the good healthy things that you need for a meal. So
yeah, absolutely.
it's like bread in a glass.
Let me see. I'm going to ask the chat. Which is my last pour of the stream be here? I have let's see, Stag Junior Batch 9, Blanton's Gold, Old Forester 1920, or the Balcones French Oak. I'll give out 4 choices. What do you think, John? What should I go for here?
If I was to vote, I would say I'd like to hear your opinion on Blanton's Gold. I've only ever had Blanton's Gold once. Dusty Dan sent me a sample.
Yeah.
And I did it blind, and while I thought it was good, I didn't think it was like a knock your socks off whiskey. So I'm curious, obviously things differ, your palate on the day or the sample was whatever. Like,
yeah, I mean, these are single barrels, so you never know. But yeah, I'll pour a little Blanton's Gold and see here.
Oh, looks like you chose correctly. We got Blanton's Gold from DJ Beacon. We got Blanton's Gold from Nick.
So when I smell this on the nose initially, and this hasn't changed from the other samples I've had of Blanton's Gold, it's a complete like vanilla cookie on the nose to me. It's a vanilla bomb. It's super hard vanilla, extremely sweet on the nose, a lot of corn influence, a lot of caramel influence, but it's like a sugar cookie to me on the nose. It's really sweet. It kind of takes up some of those quintessential Blanton's flavors and kind of amps them up a little bit.
Yeah, when I taste, I kept trying to remember. It's hard to remember what I said in the review, but I just remember it being just kind of straightforward. Nothing really stuck out too much. It was just kind of a run-of-the-mill whiskey that I definitely wouldn't think was, I mean, for us at least to get a bottle of Blanton's Gold, it's about $100.
Yeah.
So it definitely didn't add up to $100 whiskey when I tasted it.
I haven't tasted this in a while. Let me see how it is on the palate here.
And I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't think much different about the Blanton straight from the barrel. I would love to get a bottle of that and really go through it and taste it and enjoy it. But I had a sample of it, and it just, again, it was good. It just didn't knock my socks off. Everybody talks about straight from the barrel like it's the 6th BTAC, and I really didn't find that in the one sample that I had, which isn't enough to judge. But
yeah, no, I have a bottle straight from the barrel, and it's easily the best Blantons I've had because there's a ton of flavor in there. I think, to get a really good barrel that people were telling me it's a really good barrel. So I specifically kind of chose that one with purpose for the one I had. So it's really, really good. But if you don't have a good, if you just have I have a bottle of Blanton's somewhere over there that I did all the mash bill number 2, the single barrels blind, and the Blanton's came in last. It just was flat, and it didn't really have a lot of flavor. It was crazy. This Blanton's Gold, I mean, I just think it just amps up a little bit of what Blanton's already provides. If you're used to Blanton's being like that really smooth, easy finish, even though it's considered their high rye mash bill, but even a lot of people think the high rye for Buffalo Trace is still like 12 to 15%. So it's really not that high of a rye when you think about it. I mean, Blanton's Gold does bring that, but yeah, I agree. It's probably nothing. I still rather drink Elijah Craig Barrel Proof over this, or even Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
Yeah, and it makes it tough because, I mean, like I said, for us to get Blanton's Gold, I don't know what you paid for your bottle, but for me, I've never been able to see it for less than $100. I mean, especially once you equate shipping and whatever you got to do to get it.
I traded for this one, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to get a shipment or a mule to bring me some Blanton's Gold and Blanton's straight from the barrel. And I need a European mule. Anybody from Europe that wants to mule us some whiskey?
Yeah, you definitely need to find someone that's traveling to overseas.
I work with some people that work in London, I could get them to get it. It's just the shipping's a problem.
That's good. I mean, I like the finish on the gold better because I feel like the bland just goes away really quickly. But I think that's also the point of Blanton's. They're looking for like a really smooth, easy sipping, really great sweet bourbon experience. And I think us as reviewers, and I think us as people that are really into bourbon, and even the viewers, I've heard a lot of people say that Blanton's is really nothing special, but for me, I would agree with that somewhat. But when you combine the marketing, the bottle, the horse, the collecting, the hand printed label, the wax, all of that into the little grenade bottle, and then you couple that with like a sweet, really easy sipping bourbon. I mean, it's hard for someone not to like that, like a regular Joe not to really love Blanton's, So I think that's why it flies off the shelf so fast. It really is. I mean, and I said this in other streams before, freaking John Wick is drinking the stuff. So,
When you're into bourbon and you look at the prices and what you're getting, I mean, Blanton's is tough because it's the same price practically as Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. So that's tough. Blanton's has always been a solid, easy drinking whiskey. So there's that. I think, though, Blanton's has a bit of like nostalgia about it for people. It almost reminds me of like, if you're familiar with beer, there were beers that existed before craft beer was really a thing.
Yeah.
Like the first big IPA, like Pliny the Elder is this IPA that's like super revered, but you taste that beer now. And because our world of beer is inundated with IPAs, Pliny the Elder isn't anything special anymore. But it has this iconic place, and people pay a premium for it because it was one of the first, and yada yada yada. And I think there's many more IPAs that are much better than Pliny the Elder. But there it sits. You're paying twice as much than any other IPA for it, and you can't find it, and it's hard to get. Why? Because there's just this nostalgic feeling about it, and people, there's a history to it, and people like that. So I think that has something to do. I think Blanton's is somewhere along that line too.
Yeah, actually, Cooper 57M brought up. He said, "For the money, it's hard to beat Old Forester 1920," and I have one right here, really in front of me. I actually, a shameless plug here. My next, I'm actually releasing my next video probably as soon as we're done with this stream. I did the entire Whiskey Row series, all 4 bottles, and I did that in one video, so I can go through all of them because, I haven't spent a lot of time with the 1870, which was the first release. Everyone talks about the 1920. I went through the bottled and bond, and then obviously finished with the 1910. So I kind of wanted to do the entire series and see how it kind of fell with like the way it's priced, the flavor you get. If 1920 still is my favorite of the batch. So keep an eye out for that video, probably at some point today.
Hey, Eric Way just gave us a great tip. If anybody wants a bottle of Blanton's Gold, they can get it at Beverly Hills Liquor and Wine for $500.
Dude, that's
go
crazy.
Check it out now. This is not a sponsor ad either.
And Nick actually brings up it's part of that marketing when he said, I think people collect the tops and make it hard to find. It's true. It's another part of that Blanton's marketing machine. Like now you make it a collectible. And I think whiskey people are inherently collectible type of personalities anyway. So not only do you want the bottle, but now you want to collect the horse tops, and it just makes them fly off the shelf. Like you're looking for that elusive letter that you don't have. So you got to, finish it. It's interesting.
Yeah, I've had people hit me up. Like when I would post pictures of like a new bottle I got, I'd post a picture of a new bottle of Blanton's that I got, and someone's like, "Oh, I need the end with the 2 dots. You gotta trade me."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're trading bottles of Blanton's like baseball cards.
Yeah, I can't know if you can see this on the camera or not. Let me see.
Which
one? Guy.
Which letter is that? Oh, that's the N with the 2 dots. Yep.
It was this bottle, yeah. And like apparently, according to him, and I don't know how true any of this is, but according to him, that bottle or that letter is harder to find than most. So he was insistent that I trade him for it, but
Eric Wade says, I want whiskey in a Chuck Norris decanter. I told him, Eric, go talk to Dusty Dan.
Yeah, so I like this new StreamYard, man. I think there's a couple cool things. I like being able to post the comments and stuff.
Yeah.
However, cool. I don't like that when the people tag you, it's not highlighted anymore. You can't see it.
Yeah. You have to kind of run the YouTube chat to go along with the regular chat because you don't see super chats either. You have to kind of look at the YouTube version while
Yeah,
you're.
it comes up in there, but it just looks like a comment.
Exactly. Yep.
ADHD Fishing wants me to post this comment, so here you go, buddy. You asked for it, you got it.
Biatch.
I know you're at least like a 80s kid because anybody saying biatch had to be at least a teenager in the 90s. So but anyway, so let's see. What do we got in this glass? All right, I got a little bit of Booker's left.
Which Booker's is that one?
This is an older one. This is the 2017-03, which was I think the front porch batch.
Oh, that's a good batch.
It was a good batch, man. And the thing I pointed out, I was talking about it earlier, but it's only gotten better. I mean, like Booker's for me is just a whiskey that only improves with time. I don't know when it starts dropping off, but this bottle's been open for well over a year, and it's only getting better.
I would say that with every Booker's batch until the Teresa's batch from this year, the first release was just a different. I don't know what happened with that batch, but I did not enjoy that one at all. It was like a really off-profile Booker's. I just, didn't enjoy that one.
Yeah, I was talking about Booker's a little bit earlier, and it's just like I don't know that I necessarily understand Booker's. The price point getting raised up. Like a lot of people are telling me, and this isn't the case for me, but a lot of people are telling me they have to pay $80 or $90 to get a bottle of Booker's. And it's obviously a barrel proof whiskey, but it's not particularly old. They're all 6 years and change that I've ever seen. And so it's not a super old whiskey. It's a super high priced whiskey, apparently, in a lot of places. So I don't quite understand what's going on with Booker's these days, but
it's just a price increase for that's coming through the pipeline with a lot of different whiskeys. I mean, just this week, the last couple of weeks here in Ohio, I saw 3 bottles that I really like go up in price. The Antique 107, which I know a lot of people don't see, but being in Ohio, they have a lot of Weller here. The 107 sells out fast. The Special Reserve will hang out for at least, maybe 4 or 5 days until it's gone. But yeah, 107 went from 35 to about $50. Henry McKenna, which I hadn't seen in Ohio for a couple months, just came into the store this past week. And that one finally went from the $31, $32 price point all the way up to $50.
Wow.
So that one went up to $50 now. And what was the other one that went up that I was surprised? Actually, Booker's did go up a couple of months ago from 70 to 80. So here in Booker's is $80.
Yeah, I can still get Booker's for 60.
Yeah.
I think for me on Booker's is about the price I want to pay. I wouldn't want to pay much more than $60 for a bottle of Booker's. Like that feels about right. I used to be able to get up until a couple months ago, it was $50, and that seemed like a steal to me. But Henry McKenna's still like $31, $32.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, even like DJ Beacon and Nick, they said 35, 37 in North Carolina, mid 40s where Cooper is. So the prices are fluctuating. I've seen some, but I mean, I think the base price of it is going to start going up regularly everywhere eventually.
Have you guys started getting the antiques with the cork in them now?
I haven't, not here, but I have seen them. I've seen them
on Instagram.
Yeah,
they're trying to class up their game apparently and make it worth the $50.
Well, I happened to be at the distillery when they were doing the corking of a single barrel select of Weller 107, and I saw the corks and the gold foil being put on top, and that really the whole change came over because of the Weller Full Proof. So Weller Full Proof is getting the cork and then because of that they're changing the whole line. I don't know if the Weller Special Reserve is going to get corks eventually. I think apparently they are. But the Full Proof, the 12, and the Weller 107 will definitely have corks.
Yeah, and I've been seeing the Full Proof pop up all over on Instagram, and it's making me incredibly jealous because I probably will never get one. But
well, if any, I mean, we get 107 pretty regularly here. If I see one, I'll let you know because they do pop up. We can only buy one, per person, unfortunately. But
yeah, it's getting crazy. Like my Total Wine got some Weller stuff in the other day, and they said they got 1 case of antique, and that's all they're going to get for months. I mean, it's just that's just how it is. They said randomly it shows up. They don't know when it's coming. They'll get 1 box of it, and that's that.
DJ Beacon says, "What is the latest on the release of the Full Proof?" They're out there.
They're out.
They're out.
There's
Single
empties.
single barrel selects, or like barrel picks are Weller proof. I know I've hit some different areas around Kentucky already, but they're selling out, in minutes. Obviously, once people go in there and see it. As far as the regular label, the rumor was, I'm not sure how true this was, but my sources told me that there were actually a problem with the corks when it first started coming in. So it delayed because it was supposed to be out beginning of August, like the regular releases. But somebody told me there was kind of a delay with the corks and there was a problem, so it delayed the release of them. So as far as the regular releases, not really sure where those are yet, but I know there are some single barrel picks that are out there.
Yeah, that's all I've seen. Is everything I've seen is single barrel store picks of the full proof. So I don't know when they're planning on releasing the standard release of it, but yeah, they're all picks. And actually, I just posted this week on Instagram. I posted on my Mission Bottle Kill account. Someone, who was it? Timmergund or something, I think is his name on Instagram, and he posted an empty. So I reposted his picture on Mission Bottle Kill. But yeah, he killed a bottle of full proof already.
Yeah.
Like, God, man, that's just rubbing it in our faces.
Nick Zangatz says, I was told that since BT has ramped up production that Antique 107 will be more available. And that's true. They've ramped up a lot of production on the Weller line. So you could definitely, I think more will start trickling out over time. And when Buffalo Trace finishes their second expansion, they're going to be churning out, I think they said 1 million barrels in a year. Like that's how much production that they're going to be ramped up to. So we should see some more juice coming down the line. I mean, listen, we got to give it time to age. So it's not going to be tomorrow, but I think eventually you'll start seeing more Buffalo Trace stuff in the next, maybe 10 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let me see. Oh, better question. How much are fools going to be charging on the secondary market for it, from Trevor Wilson? Yeah, that's a good question. I've already heard you're going to apparently like preliminary valuation on Weller Full Proof for new releases is going to be from $400 to $500. It's
already been 500. I've seen posts of it for $500.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's stupid. I mean, I think I'd mentioned this before on my channel. I don't know if any of your viewers know. I was lucky enough to do a pick of the Weller Full Proof in July 9th, which is actually my birthday. So I went and did a pick, and they rolled out 4 barrels. 2 of them were very unique, and the other 2 just tasted like Weller Antique.
That's crazy.
It wasn't super it wasn't like, oh my God, I have to have this bottle like right now, or this whiskey. 2 of them were very unique. So we picked one of the 2 that were unique. But the 2 in the middle were like, I don't see why this is any better than Weller Antique. So,
man, I just took a sip of the Cornerstone again. I still have a little bit in the glass over here, and God, it just pops, dude. It's especially drinking next to other whiskeys. I haven't done that before, and I was drinking it. I was just drinking some Booker's. I was just drinking some Weller, and I took a sip of that, and God, it explodes with flavor. It is a really good flavorful whiskey.
Yeah.
Still, I can't judge based. The price is hurtful, but it is good.
It is good.
If $170 doesn't mean much to you, then go buy one. You won't be disappointed. All right, guys. Well, I think we should probably wrap this up. We've been going for like an hour and a half here. It's the middle of a Sunday. Oh, Scott from My Bourbon Journey came back for the tail end. Well, maybe we'll hang on for a minute. Let Scott chatter up. We should get Scott on. Scott, you should join the live stream, buddy. Get into the man cave.
Eric Waite's asking, DJ Beacon, so the Full Proof may be kind of like another CYPB dud. I don't think so, DJ, because it was I did not like the CYPB at all. But remember, the CYPB was, that was a marketing bottle. That's all it was. Let's be honest. I mean, they crowdsourced some people. If you can pick your favorite, if you could choose any type of Weller, the age, where in the warehouse it's aged, and the proof and everything, I don't think anybody would have picked that particular lot of attributes for a Weller.
No.
And that so it was obvious, like they just had some Weller, they had some stuff that they had lying around, and let's make it a special release, and people took the bait, and it's still on the secondary for like 450, 500. Like, why has nobody wised up to this? It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I don't get it, man. And I've said this many, many times, and I'll keep saying it, is no one in their right mind who got a choice to pick any age, any proof they wanted from the Weller line said, I want 8 years and 90 proof.
Yeah.
No one in their right mind would do that.
Yeah. Aged in the upper echelons in the warehouse. Yeah, no. Everybody knows the good juice is on the bottom of the warehouse, and you want it at least maybe 9, 10, 11, 12 years where it gets really delicious and sweet and perfect, and you wanted a higher proof, at least 100 proof. I mean, come on.
You're telling me no one would have picked, I want the Weller 107 mixed with the Weller 12 year, so I want a 12-year 107 proof whiskey? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would have said. Like, that would have been a fantastic whiskey.
Yeah, and DJ makes a good form because it's Weller's, and you can't get it's true. That's really what it is. But for the CYPB, I mean, anyone that's had it, I mean, it's just not. It's one of the few Wellers I've had where alcohol is throughout the entire experience. I mean, and I mean that like I realize that alcohol is through an entire whiskey experience, yes, but I mean like the taste and the flavor of it, like when you smell it, like you smell the ethanol coming off of it, and then you actually taste it too, like on the finish and stuff. It's not like you smell the alcohol in the nose and then all these other flavors start coming through, and then you taste it and it gets really sweet. It's just like it was just covered in alcohol the whole time, and that's just not, what I'm used to with the Weller. You want those really nice sweet flavors, and the CYPB just did not do that at all. It just, I can't believe people pay almost $500 for this. It's just terrible.
I might have been mad if I paid $40 for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cooper. Yeah. For a weeder, I'm happy with Larceny. Yep. Me too. I love Larceny.
And Larceny's $20. I can get Larceny for $20, $19.99. I think it goes for.
Listen, I'm lucky because Ohio has now been like everyone's kind of the secret's out. If you want Weller, come to Ohio. So, but you can get special reserve here you can still get for $23. And it's that's a damn good weeder. Why not? If you could get it for that much and it's available, why not? But
yeah, I just picked up a special reserve at Total Wine the other day. It was $18.99. I mean, just for that price all day. But like, I'm not paying $50 for it or something.
Yeah. I talked to my mother in New York, and she's she'll go out and she'll look at bottles for me when she's at a liquor store or whatever, and all the time she sees Weller Special Reserve and Weller Antique priced over $100 in every store. So.
And it's getting crazier. That's the funny part. Is it's not even they're not even letting up. It's just getting worse. There's an account on Instagram. I can't remember.
Cooper said it's 27 here in New York. I don't know where in New York you are, buddy, but. My mom in Long Island, man, she's around stores that price that stuff over 100. It's crazy.
I mean, there's tons of stores overpricing this stuff. I see there's an account on Instagram where I can't remember the name of it, but all the guy does is post the outrage. He reposts the outrageous prices of whiskey that people post, and it's just, you see it for $150, $200, and you see antique for $500 and 12 for $900, and it's just like, I mean. Do they just want to have the stuff on the shelf, so they're just pricing it so they can't sell it, or do people actually pay these prices?
Well, I know in Ohio, apparently Buffalo Trace wanted to get enough Weller in the state to actually have it on the shelf, and it is on the shelf now. As long as you get to the store, like the day it comes in, you'll see Weller Special Reserve sitting on the shelf. The antique usually will sell out still really fast. They don't get nearly as much of it, but each store seems to be getting about 3, 4, 5 cases of Weller Special Reserve each week. So it's pretty nuts. And I think that was kind of the deal with because Ohio is a state liquor controlled. So I think the deal was, since everyone's buying so much Weller, we want you to have enough to actually put it on the shelf. And it's definitely been happening.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, guys, enough talk about Weller. We've been prattling on about this stuff forever. Let's wrap this bad boy up. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming out for the Speedy sample review, and thank you guys for hanging around this week when I put out a review every day. It's the first time I've done that, and while it was a pain in the butt because editing all those videos is a nightmare, it was great to do. It was fun. Thank you guys for joining me. As Jason can probably attest, editing is probably the worst part of all this this YouTube fun. So
yeah, ADHD Fisher said, "Do more lives, John." Yeah, you should, man. Do more lives.
That's always been my goal, and I don't know why. It's just tough. It's always been a hard thing to do. Maybe I can try to do these. If you guys like these weekend ones, maybe I can start doing these a little bit more often. It's hard for me during the week just because on California time. By the time I put my kids and stuff to bed, it's like you guys are asleep. So it makes it tough. It makes it tough. So I will definitely try to do more lives. You got my word. We're gonna do more of these things. So hopefully you guys enjoy this StreamYard business. If you do and it works out, maybe we'll pony up for the premium service so we can get a couple extra features added in here and make it a little bit more of a streamlined experience. But thanks, guys, for coming. It has been a great week. Thank you for all the comments, all the likes, and everything. It's been a great time. Jason, thanks for coming on, brother. Really appreciate you stopping by and talking about Cornerstone. And anyways, guys, thanks a bunch, and we will see you in the next one.
Cheers, everybody.